Hello everyone, welcome back to the Bop Stop, where today we have, we're trying something new here. So recently, I have seen 1,000 movies. Well, I've logged 1,000 things on Letterboxd. For those of you who don't know, Letterboxd is a site which contains films, comedy specials, concerts, short films, like some TV series, all sorts of different things, documentaries, all these things. You can rate it, share with your friends, kind of social media-esque. And on my Letterboxd, I just recently passed 1,000. Actually, I think 1,040 at the time of filming, because I've been a little lazy about making this video. But I'm just going to go through my top 50 things of those 1,000 on Letterboxd. This list is sorted by directors' first names, because that was just the easiest thing for me. And also because there are some directors that have multiple entries on this list that I'm going to kind of talk about in a batch. And also, yeah, it doesn't include anything I've seen. It only includes that first 1,000, doesn't include things I've seen since 1,000, which there are definitely a couple thing like changes I would have made, I guess, but those aren't included. Let's get it started off. Number 1, we got WALL-E, directed by Andrew Stanton. Came out in 2008. Great Pixar film. Huge Pixar fan overall. I think there are multiple Pixar entries in this list. It's really cute, it's really heartwarming, but it also, I think, has some greater messages about climate as well as reliance on technology, or perhaps over-reliance on technology. And those themes are very relevant to, I think, our world today, and the climate crisis has only gotten worse since WALL-E. So definitely those themes are very relevant. But also, WALL-E and Eve are able to express so much like emotion, and you get really attached to these characters, and they don't even say like real words. The amount of emotions Pixar is able to convey just through like actions, even some facial expressions, and even like non-human facial expressions for the most part. It's very, very cool, very interesting, and yeah, WALL-E's just a great film all around, like no complaints. Number 2 is the documentary Harlan County, USA, directed by Barbara Kopple. This is a documentary about coal miner strikes in the 70s in Harlan County in Kentucky. And it just documents like what the people are going through in these strikes and the terrible conditions they had to work with, and the terrible conditions they had to strike under. There's lots of like violence between the coal corporations and the miners themselves. Very eye-opening film. Definitely would highly recommend watching. I think it's like I think I watched it on YouTube, so you can too. You have no excuse. Next entry, number 3, it's The Incredibles. Another Pixar film. This one came out in 2004, directed by Brad Bird. The Incredibles is like such a multi-layered film, I think. I think it's my personal favorite Pixar film. It has so much going on, even beyond the surface. Like this is like a great example of, as a kid, you think the film is about one thing, and then as an adult, it's about a completely different thing. Like, as a kid, I loved The Incredibles because I was like, oh yeah, cool superheroes. And I like wanted to be Dash, and I wanted to have super speed because I thought that would be so cool. But as an adult, it's like Pixar's The Incredibles is about like a troubled family. Like they're going through lots of internal conflict. The dad isn't able to like live out his dream, and he's trying to get like these thrills through not so good means, and he messes up a lot, and his wife thinks he's cheating on her, and like there's a whole bunch going on in The Incredibles that you definitely don't get as a kid, and it manages to get all these deeper themes across while still being a fun like superhero movie. Number 4 is Blindspotting, directed by Carlos Lopez Estrada. This film came out in 2018. This film's also about a lot of things like racism, gentrification, poverty. There's a lot there. Also like stereotypes, making assumptions about people, that kind of thing. And the way it dissects these things is, one, extremely unique. The acting is absolutely incredible, especially I gotta hand it to Daveed Diggs. He really takes it away. Daveed Diggs is just such a versatile entertainer and such a capable actor. and he really, really expresses his talents in Blindspotting. And it's like also it's a very emotional film. It gets very, very heavy. Definitely can't recommend it enough. It deals with the themes I mentioned earlier in a way that I think no other film does, and is definitely something worth seeing. Following Blindspotting, we're gonna have Trainspotting. Trainspotting is about drug addiction. It's about a couple of boys, a couple of boys in England. I think they're in like Scotland. They're all in various forms addicted to heroin, except for the one guy who's not addicted to heroin, but he has his own problems. It's not like the darkest look at drug addiction. There are definitely films that get way, way darker, way rougher, but it is certainly a heavy look at drug addiction and just how that affects you and like the people around you. And also, Ewan McGregor is a very polarizing lead here. Great actor. I think he shows up elsewhere on this list as well. And it's like kind of crazy how versatile an actor he really is. After Trainspotting, we have Fight Club, directed by David Fincher. I don't know what to say about Fight Club that like hasn't already been said. This is like one of the most film bro films, I feel, and there's probably hundreds of videos about it already on YouTube. But great movie. Also really, I think, is enhanced by rewatching it. You definitely get more from the film and think about what it's actually trying to say, because Fight Club is another one where there's lots of things going on the surface, but way more going on beneath the surface that I think takes some digging to see. And like, not even because like you might not know the twist on the first time. Like, I knew the twist when I first watched it, and also the twist is pretty obvious, I think, if you're watching it. But there's definitely worth like rewatching and like understanding the film more, I think. Next up, we have Blade Runner 2049, directed by Denis Villeneuve. What I think is the most incredible thing about this film are the visuals, and in fact, pretty much across Denis Villeneuve's filmography is the visuals. Like especially the new Dune movie is a great example of that. It just looks great. He's great at making these sci-fi like landscapes come to life and really put you in this fictional world that you kind of can't even fully fathom because it's just so out there, so alien. Then we have Bao, directed by Domee Shi. This is a short film this is like a Pixar short. They would like run these before their films in theaters. This short's great, like makes me cry. So Pixar is able to get across like so much and with so little. Like there's no really dialogue in this film. It's just expressions and imagination of a little Bao boy. And man, it really just hits you in the feels. Yeah, great little short film. It's only like 8 minutes long, so definitely watch Bao. Next up, we have 2 films by the same director, Don Herzfeldt. Definitely one of my favorite animation filmmakers. The 2 films we have are It's Such a Beautiful Day. This is the full like 60-minute thing, so all 3 films combined together. I didn't want to separate the 3 films out. And then World of Tomorrow, specifically only World of Tomorrow 1. I haven't seen 2 or 3 yet, although I plan on it. World of Tomorrow 1, just in the 15 minutes that it is absolutely incredible. There's so many like quotable moments and moments that Don Herzfeldt does a great job of presenting things to the audience in a way to promote like thought on those things. He does this throughout World of Tomorrow and It's Such a Beautiful Day. Like, neither of these films leave you with a single point. They're not like, this is this. He just presents scenarios, and often very strange scenarios, to promote these different ways of thinking, different perspectives, and all through very simple but effective animation. Yeah, he's got a ton of great short films. It's Such a Beautiful Day is like really his longest project, but that's just 3 short films together. And It's Such a Beautiful Day is also just one of the most incredible pieces of media, I think, ever. Such a Beautiful Day, specifically dealing a lot with death and life and things like that. And World Tomorrow gets into those same subjects. He talks about those a lot throughout his work. Such People Today is really does a great job of expressing a lot of how I feel about life and death and things like that. Great films. They really resonate with me. Would highly recommend checking out Don Herzfeldt's work. And he has even some lighter work, like Rejected, for example, is hilarious. A great short film. That was the first 10. The next one is probably going to go a little bit faster because these next 6 are all by the same director. Yes, that is correct. One director has 6 of the top 50. And his name is Edward Yang, and I love every one of his films. The 6 that are on the list are A Brighter Summer Day, A Confucian Confusion, Taipei Story, Terrorizers, That Day on the Beach, and Yi Yi. Yi Yi, I've often said, is my favorite film of all time. Brighter Summer Day is up there as well. So is Taipei Story. Like, pretty much every one of Edward Yang's films is so full of life. They feel so real. I guess I'll kind of go through them each individually just to make it easier on myself. Okay, A Brighter Summer Day is long. It's, I would say, generally about relationships and like coming of age, growing up in like a difficult world. There's lots of violence and things going on. The main character really just is trying to like find himself, figure things out, and the way he goes about these things and the way things happen around him leads to some very tough situations. This film's rough. Like it really hits. A Confusion is more satirical. It's about young people like making it in the city. This would be in Taipei City. It doesn't really focus on any specific characters. It's just a bunch of different characters and how they interact together. It's more, like I said, it's like satire, so it's more broad, I would say. Still hits a lot of emotional beats. Still very intense. Taipei Story is pretty straightforward, a love story about these two people, but it's also about their lack of love and how they don't work, but they do, and it's very sad, and like the ending is so heartbreaking. And there's lots of moments throughout where it's very heartbreaking. And it's probably, Taipei Story is probably my favorite like romance film, although it's hard to call it a romance film because I feel like most romance films end in like a happy ending, and spoiler alert for Edward Yang films, none of them have a happy ending. It's all awful, like, because they're all about life. And I think Yang was very much of the life sucks opinion. Terrorizers are also really good. Also more of like a romance film, but integrates other characters as well. You see different lives and how they intersect. I think my biggest issue with Terrorizers is that it hits its like emotional high point like halfway through the film instead of at the very end of the film. There is a conversation between a man and his wife. I don't want to spoil it, but there is a conversation between a man and his wife, which I think is like where that film peaks. And then there's still a lot more movie left. And yes, that the rest of the movie is still worth watching. It's still an incredible movie, but yeah, in the middle is where I was crying instead of like at the end. And then That Day on the Beach. This is Yang's like full-length directorial debut. It's incredible. He absolutely hit it out of the park. This entire film is like a conversation between two old friends talking about what happened after they split apart and went their separate ways. The kind of emotions of life that they had to go through in their time apart, like where life led them. Another very, very emotional film, very intense film. And then finally, Yi Yi. I can't speak enough good about Yi Yi. Literally the greatest film ever made, in my opinion. Again, it's about life, but Yi Yi does a great job at looking at different stages of life all at once, between daughter, son, the dad, and then like the grandma, and even the wife too. I think when I first watched Yi Yi, I didn't really credit the wife's story as much as I did the second time. One of the most human films I think I've ever seen. Okay, moving on from Edward Yang, we have Come and See, directed by Elem Klimov. This is it's the best war film ever made. It's about a boy in Russia during World War II, and it just looks at how war absolutely destroys everything. Like, war is not good for anybody, essentially. It also is one of the most realistic looks at war, I think, ever. Horrifying film. Next up is The Shawshank Redemption. This is, I don't know, another one where it's like everybody's seen this film, I feel, and like I don't really have that much to say about it that hasn't already been said. Great film. Love the story, the acting. Morgan Freeman's great. Just well made film. Number 19, Koyaanisqatsi. So Koyaanisqatsi is, I've seen it called like a documentary, but I've also seen it called like a visual poem. And I think visual poem works better. Poem, yeah. There's really only like one word. There's a couple of words that are spoken in chants throughout the music. None that you really understand, or it doesn't really tell you till the end. And the one word you really do know throughout the entire thing is Koyaanisqatsi, which it also doesn't tell you the definition of until the end. However, just by watching these scenes of Earth and life on Earth, you very much get what the film is going for long before the end of the film. Also one of the most unique films. It's great visuals combined with just great audio. The soundtrack for the film is composed by Philip Glass, who's absolute legend. Number 20 is A Dog's Will, or O Ato de Compadecida, Portuguese. It's directed by Guel Arraes. I don't know how to pronounce Portuguese things, I'm sorry. This is the film. There's also a mini-series. I have not seen that, although I want to, and supposedly it's better than the film. But I've only seen the film, and the film is absolutely fantastic. This is like a comedy. It feels like a sitcom or like a soap opera kind of thing. It has very like TV quality to it. Absolutely great. The writing and the acting knocks it out of the park. This film is the edited version of the miniseries. So the pacing is like a little weird. It definitely feels a little rushed. It feels TV-esque. Everything that this film gets across is absolutely incredible. Every single scene just adds to the whole, and it's a really great film. I just looked at the time that I'm taking so far to record the first 20, and it's way too long. So we're gonna speed it up a little bit. I'll probably focus on the more interesting and more like personal films than some of the other ones. Okay, number 21, Good Will Hunting. Again, great film bro film. Really emotional, great acting. Robin Williams is great writing as well. Next 3 are all by the same director, by Hayao Miyazaki. Probably have heard of Hayao Miyazaki, at least I hope. The 3 Hayao Miyazaki films on this list are Lupin III and The Castle of Cagliostro, which most people probably haven't heard of or haven't seen. It is Miyazaki's directorial, like full-length debut, I believe, and I grew up watching this film. It's great, it's super fun. I think the thing that really makes this film for me is the visuals and the music. There are some great, like, beautiful stills, especially when, spoilers, I'm sorry, at the very end when the flood happens, there's this one still that is shown, and it is beautiful. Also, the opening sequence is incredible. And speaking of the opening sequence, the theme of the film, called Fire Treasure, like one of my favorite songs, like, ever. Just absolutely so beautiful, I love it. Yeah, great film. Nausicaa is, this is another, like, ecological film, or a film with an ecological message, and I think that this might be the best film that gets across that point, because it also is another film where as a kid you don't understand some things that you do as an adult. The giant like golems that engulf the earth in flame, as a kid I was like, oh cool, some fantasy thing. As an adult, they're nukes. They're just talking about nukes. And yeah, there's a lot of great messaging about how we as humans, we are just killing the planet and are killing ourselves in the process, and something that I wish more people would understand or take seriously. And then finally, The Wind Rises. Honestly, I haven't seen The Wind Rises in quite a while, although I've been meaning to like rewatch it for a while, but I do really enjoy it. Incredibly sad, incredibly intense. One of the more like realistic Hayao Miyazaki films, definitely, and definitely one of the more gut-wrenching, because it is just so realistic. It doesn't take place in like this fantasy world like Howl's Moving Castle or something like that, but it takes place in World War II Japan. It is honestly very brutal because of that. Moving on, number 25, we have Persona, directed by Ingmar Bergman. We had a podcast episode talking about Persona, so I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but one of the most unique films ever made and one of the best made films ever made, I would say. A film that is so tight in what it actually shows you. It gives you so much more than that. And the cinematography is absolutely incredible. Like, one of the best shot films ever, maybe. One of the best written films. There's this specifically one scene that sticks with me is just a woman describing a sexual encounter, and that scene is like hotter than an actual like sexual encounter in like any other film. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Number 26, we have Lava. This is another Pixar short, and it's just like a song and some visuals. And I know a lot of people like don't like this one as much, but I remember crying in the theater because it was so sweet. It was just so breaks my heart, and then it like puts it back together, and like I love Lava. Number 27, we have Juno. Going into this film, I didn't really know what it was about. I guess I thought it was about abortion, so I was watching it around all the time when some of the abortion stuff was happening earlier this year. It's not about abortion. It's about parenthood, actually. Fun fact. And it's an incredible look at parenthood, and definitely unique. Amazing acting by Elliot Page. Incredibly like well written, well made, and very intense, but also sweet as well. As you can see, I gravitate towards films with intense emotions, and Juno definitely nails the intensity. Number 28, we have The Worst Person in the World. This is, I think, the most recent film on this list, coming out in 2021. It's a Swedish film about a woman who is the worst person in the world. In reality, she's just like trying to live her life, and as we all do when we try and live our lives, we make mistakes. She makes a lot of mistakes, and some of those mistakes are very sad or have very dire consequences later. And again, it's a very full of life film. Yeah, and it makes me cry. The film is split into like 12 chapters with a prologue and an epilogue at different points in this woman's life, and you get to see different scenes from all these different points, and you really you grow with this woman, and you also fall with this woman and the people around her. Definitely like a tough watch, I would say, but it's very good. Number 29, Greener Grass. This is a dark comedy satire film by, I think, like SNL people. I don't really watch SNL, so I don't know, but from what I'm told, SNL. So it's making fun of suburbia. It makes fun of suburbia in like incredibly dark ways, and also incredibly like funny, ridiculous ways. It's such a mystical world, but again, it gets at the heart of so many issues, especially as someone who like grew up in suburbia. It really hits home. It's so ridiculous, but also literally American suburbia is so ridiculous, and I've never seen a film attack it as well or as poignantly as Greener Grass. Yeah, also literally one of the funniest films I've ever seen. Number 30, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I love this film, grew up on this film. Great soundtrack, very charismatic performance by Matthew Broderick, great acting by Alan Ruck. I knew it was Alan something. Great performance by Alan Ruck, who is like the real main character. He's the only one with like character development, because Ferris is just Ferris no matter what. So it was a fun time. These next two, 31 and 32, are also by the same director, and very much about the same things. I would say they're kind of intertwined. They are The Act of Killing and The Look of Silence by Joshua Oppenheimer. They are documentaries about Indonesia, and they'll look at like the culture there because of the Indonesian genocide. And The Act of Killing is probably, I think, the best documentary ever made, because it is one of the most eye-opening things I've ever seen. Like, I did not think that like people like that existed. I thought people like that were, villains in movies. And no, those people are real, and they're just living, they're just chilling in Indonesia, and also in a lot of other countries where atrocities were committed, and especially in countries where atrocities were committed, backed by the USA and other countries as well. But USA was definitely a big one. There are just so many scenes that just make me lose all faith in like humanity, because like people like this they just exist, and they have like, for the most part, the X killing follows like the killers, the people who perpetrated the genocide, and for the most part they just have no remorse for what they've done. In fact, a lot of time they're celebrated as heroes in Indonesia. There are so many brutal scenes. Like there is just a scene where one of the dudes is like, hey, let me show you something, and he just goes and extorts money from people in the market, because if they don't give him money, he will beat them up and possibly kill them. And it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Yeah, I would definitely watch it. There are things that are far worse than that as well. But that's the X killing. The Look of Silence follows someone who, I believe it's his dad, died in the genocide, and he goes and confronts the people who perpetrated the genocide. And it's another very like brutal look. I like the act of killing more, as it's just like observing these people rather than confronting them. And I think through that observation you really see more of like how they live, how they operate, than in the confrontation aspect. But yeah, both very, very, very rough films, but very important films. Number 33, we have Kopple. Again, we had a podcast episode on this, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much. But super fun film. It's a spaghetti western, and by spaghetti we mean ramen. And it makes you very hungry. There's some really good looking ramen in that film. So, but just a super fun film, super well made, very fun. It's comedic, it's lighthearted. It's very obviously having fun itself, and I appreciate that. All right, number 34, we have Akira. I don't know if you can see the Akira poster there, but I like that movie. So yeah, Akira is like one of my favorite animated films ever. The way it looks is incredible. Sounds, the soundtrack, absolutely incredible. Just like the story it tells, really, really interesting, very cool. Very much also about nukes. A lot of Japanese media about nukes. I wonder why. Number 35, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Again, also another film that I feel like is talked about a lot. A great romance film. Just about like how romance develops, and how, you know, there's these ups and downs throughout romance, and how to navigate your way like through a relationship. And we go from kind of sweet romance with, you know, its ups and downs to just down, because number 36 we have The Piano Teacher. This is directed by Michael Haneke. This is the only Michael Haneke film I've seen, although I do want to see more. But this film makes me feel like shit. This film makes me feel so awful. It literally churns my insides. But it's so good. It's like such a good film. Yeah, like I can't like recommend watching The Piano Teacher, but like it's a really good film, if that makes sense. It's mostly about this woman who has lived with her mother like her entire life, and there's a lot of sexually repressed things because of that, and she lets that out in various ways and does various things, and it is awful and I hate it, but it's such a good film. Number 37 is Calm with Horses. This is like a fairly recent film directed by Nick Rowland, who, from what I've seen of Nick Rowland, is like, he's made some very good things so far. I haven't seen that much of his work, but of his work that I have seen, I've enjoyed it very much. This film is about like a thug in the Irish mob, and how he's like he has a heart of gold, and he's trying to navigate his way through these situations, and trying to patch things up with his son, and like the mother of his son. And there is this, I cry during this film. There's a scene at the end where there's just this conversation that really hits home, I think, especially if you've been in relationships that didn't work out for whatever reason, and breakups weren't the best. There's a lot going on in that conversation, and it really speaks to my experience, I would say. It's very interesting, just like how different of a character Arm is from like most people, but still how relatable Arm is, and like how you really are able to identify with Arm, and that's really well done, really well made. And I'm gonna start crying if I don't move on. So we're moving on to The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. This is just my favorite Lord of the Rings film. Also, I saw the extended versions of all of them, so this is the extended version, technically. Two Towers, I think, is just like the most fun. It has like great battles at the end, great adventures. Yeah, you get to see Gandalf come back. You're like, whoa, Gandalf! You just get the tree people. I love the tree people. They're great. They're chill. Yeah, love The Two Towers. Really cool. Number 39, Pulp Fiction. It's Pulp Fiction. It's a Quentin Tarantino film. It's great. It has everything I want out of a Quentin Tarantino film. The non-linear storytelling in this film, I think, is better than like in any other film. The way you are able to make connections across these different stories, these different people. Great acting. Just love Pulp Fiction. Iconic film for a reason. Number 40, Fantastic Planet, or La Planète Sauvage. It's French, so I gotta try and be French. This is another one of my favorite animated films. This one focuses more on, I would say, like human/animal rights. This film, you can argue it means different things. I would argue, one, yes, slavery is bad, but it also argues that pet ownership is slavery, which is a controversial opinion right now, I understand, but maybe watch this film and you'll feel differently. This film essentially asks, like, what if humans were pets? Not even pets, more like pests. It does an incredible look at that, and also just the sci-fi vibes of this entire film are absolutely incredible. The score by Alain Gorger, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Great, like one of my favorite film scores. Love the visuals. I want to get Fantastic Planet poster there, but I haven't yet because I am lazy. Number 41, Princess Bride. Another great film. Everybody should watch The Princess Bride. Hilarious, romantic, fun, adventurous. Everybody just kills it on every front in this film. Even like the minor characters. Number 42, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Can't see it, but there's a poster right there for that one. Also, like, what hasn't been said about this film? Great atmosphere. I want you all to know that the ugly is actually the main character in this film. It's not about Clint Eastwood, even though he is very, very charming. It's great adventure, great soundtrack by Ennio Morricone. Yeah, great film, love it. Number 43, we have Donald Glover's Weirdo. This is a comedy special that's like an hour long, and it is the best comedy special I've ever seen. Admittedly, some of the jokes have not aged that well, and like, I get that, but I saw this many years ago, and it was hilarious then, and is still hilarious now. There are so many incredible jokes, and Donald Glover is able to, one, be super charismatic, but also use the very limited theatrics of being like a stand-up comedian to very much his advantage. He has a lot of great motion, makes great use of like voices and faces and other things to really enhance his storytelling and his joke telling. Number 44, we have Dog Day Afternoon. This is a heist film based on real events. I found this film really funny because me and my roommates were just like chilling one day, and they're like, we should watch a movie, and they're like, what type of movie you want to watch? And we eventually decided on a heist film, and I looked up like heist films, and this was one that came up, and I was like, oh, I've been meaning to see this, so put it on, and it's a heist film. It's not like a typical heist film, definitely. This is more about character interactions between the people pulling off the heist and like police, the crowds outside, the hostages inside, things like that. Great film, great way it develops these character interactions, and examines them. Gripping movie as well. Like, you're always excited to see what's happening next or what will happen next. Great performances. Love Dog Day Afternoon. Number 45 is Love Exposure, directed by Sion Sono. I could talk for an hour about this film. This film is intense. This film is super problematic. I'm not going to, like, tread around that. Like, it has so many problematic elements, but also manages to be such an incredible, I would say, coming-of-age film. It's technically a romance film because it centers around a romance plot, but the romance plot is maybe one of the weaker parts of the film. I think stronger parts are this character and his development, and also this kind of off world that we're put into with all these kind of kooky different characters. Also, how this film deals with, or how the characters in this film deal with, like, sex, sexual repression, and like that part of coming of age is very, very unique, very interesting, and incredible. Also, this film is hilarious. Like, so many ridiculous moments throughout this film. You get... Yeah, great film. Number 46, we have Do the Right Thing. We also had a podcast episode about Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing is extremely relevant. It's talking about, again, talks about a lot of things, mostly centered around racism and the racial tensions in Bed-Stuy, which is a neighborhood in New York. Really throughout the film, there's just all these different characters, all just doing their own thing, and it all kind of comes together in a very heated way at the very end. Yeah, and this film has a lot of meditations on racism, racial tensions, gentrification, culturally, what these things have in store for different communities, all these different things. And lots of great characters in this film too, lots of great acting. Honestly, like, the weakest link is Spike Lee's himself, his acting. Even then, that doesn't really bring the film down, I would say. Like, this film, absolutely incredible, something everybody should watch. Number 47, we have What We Do in the Shadows. This is my favorite Taika Waititi film. It's hilarious. My favorite, like, Halloween-esque film as well, I would say. Absolutely hilarious film. I'm really, like, just get together with some friends, watch What We Do in the Shadows. You won't regret it. This is the film, not the TV series. I've seen some of the TV series, and I have not liked it as much as the film. Number 48, we're almost done. Okay. Number 48 is going to be Big Fish, directed by Tim Burton. Tim Burton has, like, turned out to be one of my favorite directors. I think as a kid, I always thought that Tim Burton was always the kind of, like, haha, funny, spooky, scary film guy. But Big Fish is, like, this heartfelt, family-oriented film, very much in the vein of, like, Terry Gilliam, I would say. This film was a lot about fantasy and reality, and how to kind of blend those two together in your life and live a fantastical life. It's a very beautiful film. Really appreciate this character that we get, that Ewan McGregor plays. It's like a very fun film as well. Like I said, it has a lot of these fantastical elements, and they're very fun to see and, like, explore. Number 49 is Kill la Kill. This is a, like, one-season anime by Studio Trigger. It's satire on a lot of other anime and, like, genres and things like that, especially, like, high school anime. And it's also just a hilarious show. Because it's satire, I think it might work better if you are familiar with other anime, but even then it's still, I think, super, super fun, super funny. One of the core jokes of the series is, like, high schoolers in skimpy outfits. I know it's, like, weird. It's part of the satire. It's not my favorite part of the show, I will say. Besides being funny, also, like, heartfelt show. Like, I cried at the end. I don't know if I cried, but it definitely, like, hits you in the feels at, like, the very end. And then finally, number 50 is Tale of Tales. This is a short film. It's, like, 30 minutes long. It's an animated short film, like 30 minutes long. Very unique animation style. So I watched this on YouTube in, like, a low quality video. And if people know of, like, higher quality versions out there, please let me know, because I would love to see a higher quality version. Because even the low quality version, it looks amazing. This film deals mostly with, like, reflections on memory, and it's a very interesting take on that. Certainly unique. All right, yeah, so that's It's the top 50 of my 1,000 films that I've seen on Letterboxd. You've seen 1,000 films? Let me know your top 50 down in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you've seen like any of the films, what your thoughts are, if you agree, disagree. Maybe you're like, oh man, Big Fish sucks. And I'm like, oh, I like that movie. Or you're like, hey, you like Edward Yang too much. I'm like, stop it. He's great. Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you have a good day.